Coming, please stand for the pledge and remain standing. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Please remain standing for a moment of silence. Thank you. Roll call, please.
Mayor Dickey,
Here.
Vice Mayor Magazine,
Here.
Councilmember McMahon, here. Councilmember Charno,
Here.
Councilmember Friedel,
Present.
Councilmember Spellich,
Present.
and Councilmember Grzybowski.
Present. Thank you. And our attorney is also attending on the phone. I've been asked to remind you that if you have...
Good evening.
If you have... I'm sorry? I didn't hear. Oh. If you have anything that you would like to have a speaker card, please fill it out and give it to Liz. We always start our meetings with our reports by council members, town manager, and mayor. Grady?
I don't have a lot to report, but I wanted to let the council know that next week we will be hosting the Leadership Academy's Know Your Government Day. So this is where the department directors and I, including the mayor, will give presentations on the operations of the town. And so we're looking forward to greeting the new 16-member class of Leadership Academy. So that's all I have.
I have a few things. The first thing I want to talk about is I attended a virtual meeting with the Fort McDowell Yavapai Nation and accepted a grant on behalf of the town for our promotion of area golf courses. And Mike and Grady and I, we also attended a sodium meeting work group with the sanitary district in preparation for our joint meeting coming up sometime next month, like the 12th or something like that. The annual board meeting for the Greater Phoenix Economic Council was last week, and I did 2 Phoenix East Valley meetings in the past 2 weeks, infrastructure and transportation, as well as the economic vitality. And last week was our kickoff for Class 5 of the Leadership Academy. And like Grady said, there are 16 people in it, and I'm very excited to have it finally starting because as graduating class in Class 4, we are planning Class 5, and we graduated in 2019. So we've been working on this thing for 2 years, so we're very excited to have it over. And that's it for me today.
Councilman Spellich or Councilman Jerry Friedel, do you have anything that you'd like to say?
This is Jerry. I do not, Mayor. Thank you.
Thank you. David?
No, Mayor. No, Mayor. No, Mayor, thank you. I can just tell you that I know every square inch of the Mayo Clinic. That's all I can tell you.
Oh, my. Sorry. Thank you. We had our GPEC, Greater Phoenix Economic Council Mayor and Supervisor quarterly meeting, and we're going to be getting a report at this meeting from GPEC, so we'll talk a little bit about that. We had our 9/11 memorial tribute over at the amphitheater. Rotary was there, other organizations that made these wonderful models and put up all the flags. It was just a beautiful reminder on the 20-year anniversary, of course. We read the proclamation, so that was good. Yeah, we had the leadership launch, which we also had a proclamation for, and presented to Dory Wittrick, who was her brainchild to do leadership. And so I'm looking forward to what this next class will tackle. Thank you, Sharon, for all your organization for that, and Peggy is going to be participating, so that's very exciting. And so now we have proclamations and then a recognition. So I'm going to go down and do them all at once. First, I'm going to start with the ovarian cancer awareness. I believe we have some folks here, Valencia Hall, and so I'll come down, I'll read this, and then I will present this to you, and if you want to say a few words, that's fine. Then we'll do the Constitution Week, and I don't, is anybody here to present that? Thank you. So from DAR, and then we'll do honoring a commissioner. So let's do that right now. so I just pick it up. We'll find out. Sorry. Not sure about this. Turn it on. So Valencia, and anybody else that'd like to come up, I'll read this. Join me, come on. I have big writing, so I'll read it first. So it says, is it working? Sorry. Whereas ovarian cancer is one of the most common forms of cancer among women and causes more deaths than any other type of female reproductive cancer, and whereas it's estimated that more than 21,000 women in the United States will be diagnosed with ovarian cancer this year, and more than 13,000 will die from the disease, and whereas Arizona has the sixth highest incident and mortality rates of ovarian cancer in the American Southwest, with over 70% of its cases being diagnosed at late stage, and whereas there's no test or screening exam that can detect ovarian cancer in its early stages, on this day, we joined the National Ovarian Cancer Coalition Arizona to raise awareness of the disease and its impact on Arizonans. We encourage all residents to learn more about the subtle signs, symptoms, and current treatment options available to women to identify and overcome this disease. So therefore, I, Jenny Dickey, Mayor of the Town of Fountain Hills, do hereby proclaim September 2021 as Ovarian Cancer Awareness Month on this 21st day of September 2021. So here's the proclamation I'd like to present to you and ask if you would like to say a few words. I think first we'll get a picture taken, if that's okay. Thank you. Would you like to say anything?
Sure. Good evening. My name is Anna Valencia Hall. I am a 7-year survivor of ovarian cancer. And on behalf of my Teal sisters and my Teal tribe, as we like to call each other here in Arizona, thank you so much for this recognition. We really appreciate it.
To say something?
Hi, guys. I am new to this tribe, but very welcomed with open arms. I was diagnosed May 2020 with breast cancer and June 2020 with ovarian cancer. So I've definitely been through the ringer during this pandemic, but I've found an amazing sisterhood, and we really appreciate you guys bringing awareness to this disease. It's very, very important. So thank you so much, Mayor.
All the best. Thank you. Next, we have the Constitution Week. Would you like to come up? All right. Hi, good to see you all. Can you fit there? Yeah. Thank you. Let me get this to this. First, I'm going to read the preamble. We, the people of the United States, in order to form a more perfect union, establish justice, ensure domestic tranquility, provide for the common defense, promote the general welfare, and secure the blessings of liberty to ourselves and our posterity, do ordain and establish this Constitution for the United States of America. Now the proclamation. Whereas September 17th, 2021 marks the 234th anniversary of the framing of the Constitution of the United States of America by the Constitutional Convention, and whereas it is fitting and proper to accord official recognition to this magnificent document and its memorable anniversary, and to the patriotic celebrations which will commemorate the occasion, and whereas Public Law 915 guarantees the issuing of a proclamation each year by the President of the United States of America, designating September 17th through 23rd as Constitution Week. So therefore, I, Jenny Dickey, by virtue of the authority vested in me as mayor, do hereby proclaim the week of September 17th through 23rd as Constitution Week, and ask our citizens to reaffirm the ideals the framers had in 1787 by vigilantly protecting the freedoms guaranteed to us through this guardian of our liberties on this 21st day of September 2021. Thank you. Here's the proclamation, and if anybody would like to say anything, you're welcome to do that. Would you like to?
Yes.
Thank you.
Hello, my name is Marie Byrne. I'm the regent of the Four Peaks chapter here in Fountain Hills of the Daughters of the American Revolution. I think that sometimes there's a little misunderstanding about what we do and what we're about. We're nonpartisan and non-political, but we have 3 very important missions. We all have lineage to patriots in the American Revolutionary War. And our main mission since 1890 has been historic preservation, education, especially about American history, and patriotism. So we thank you very much, Mayor Dickey, for reading our proclamation. And
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you so much. Anyone else? Thank you. Thanks so much for coming. They invited me to speak when they had their convention in Fountain Hills, at Wecopa, so that was very nice. Last, we are going to give a certificate of appreciation to John Kovac for his dedicated service on the Board of Adjustment for many years. We have Commissioner Paul Ryan and I think Carol Frica is here, and if you all would like to come up, we'll present this to John, and then you guys can say a few words of appreciation since you've had all these wonderful years of service with you. Thank you so much for coming. Hi, Carol. Paul, would you like to say a few words, and I can present this to you, John? Thank you so much.
Well, first off, Johnny, thank you so much for your service. 18 years serving in the town of Fountain Hills on the Board of Adjustment is a remarkable achievement, actually. And I just wanted to let the folks know that Johnny and I have been close since the very first day I walked in there about a decade ago, when he said, "Boy, I'm sure glad you're here. You sound like Clint Eastwood and you look like George Clooney." So ever since then, he's been my favorite board member. So it's been an honor and a privilege to serve with one of the most the kindest, fairest, and civil people I've ever met in my life. So we're going to miss him, but we also wish you good luck and Godspeed.
Thank you, John. We'll miss you.
Would you like to say some stuff?
Why not? I've got a couple of different levels now. I'm coming up on 85 years old. Been married 63 years. I served on our Sunridge Canyon board for 16 years and 18 years here. And I'm so thankful to our council, who every 2 years had to approve me, make sure I was walking the straight line. And the staff who got all the papers together, and Paula. And so we had our meeting that ran very smoothly. Most of all, it's good, it's fun to work on a board when you have someone like Paul. He kind of keeps everything running smooth, and if it gets a little, hectic, so forth, he can smooth it out. So we thank for that. Thank you for everything. Okay.
Thank you. Thanks so much. Thank you all very much. We appreciate everybody's hard work and appreciate you coming here tonight. Our next item is a scheduled appearance. Grady, would you like to do the honors, please?
Yes, we're very fortunate tonight to have with us Chris Camacho. Chris Camacho is the CEO and president of the Greater Phoenix Economic Council. This organization, the town of Fountain Hills and nearly all of the Valley cities and towns are members of GPEC. And it's a great organization that actually helps all of us with our regional economic development interests. With that, I'll turn it over to Mr. Camacho.
All right, thank you, Grady. It's great to see you, Mayor, City Council. Thanks for the opportunity to be here with you tonight. What a spirited level of support that you have in your community, and you should be very proud. I get to do these a lot, so you don't often get to see the level of community commitment that you have here, so it's wonderful to see. And I promise you, I do tell everyone that I get to interface with, the undulation that you have here is very different than the rest of the valley. So seeing the entry points to your community are certainly very unique. So with that, I do have one of my colleagues here with me today too, our Senior Vice President, who will join me at the end to talk a little bit further about the International Dark Sky Initiative that we're really excited about for this community. So James told me I had 5 minutes, and I promise I won't go a second over. or I made a promise to him I wouldn't do that. So I've been at GPEC for 13 years, and as you see here, our mission is really focused on attracting new industry to the market, supporting the growth and transition of this economy to new advanced industry sectors. So again, for those of you that were around back in 2008, 9, 10, 11, 12, you saw the lack of industry diversification, really led by housing and growth in the early 2000s. We've really fortified our position now where we're now fully recovered from the initial 6-quarter impact of the COVID-induced downturn. And so we're on our way back. We're one of the fastest growing markets once again. And I think, tied to the governor's work and our state partners, the mayors, councils, city management leadership, together across the 22 communities we work with, we've been able to put this region in a position to get back on its feet. And what I want to make sure I'm clear in what I talk about today is we're known for the business development work, the transactional work, those 45 to 50 new companies that do come to the Valley every year. But well beyond that, our focus is to ensure that all companies, both in market and outside the area, understand our value proposition and why they would want to invest in the greater Phoenix region. Each city, each town has a very different value proposition as it fits into the regional fabric. So companies don't necessarily evaluate one community versus another. They evaluate a market and then ultimately a trade area. And so as we're in that process, the companies go through their own due diligence process as it relates to the existing real estate product that they need, the labor force that they're seeking, the type of infrastructure that's in place. And so one of the things I think that's very important in this community, you have incredible levels of quality of housing, and at the same time you have a very strong small business community here as well. But you're a feeder system, a resident and labor feeder system to parts of Scottsdale and all the way down the 101 into the Tempe and Mesa submarkets. So it's very important to understand. I'm always careful when I talk to city councils and city management about what we do and how we're measured, because I think it's important to know how each community fits into that broader value proposition. So I'll unpack that if you'd like in the Q&A section. So the other aspect that we do, as you'll see in the middle column, is branding. We go outside this market, and just recently for the mayor's meeting that we had a couple weeks, was that last week? And along with Sharon, our board member, we went through a conversation about water and the facts about water. And if anybody's interested in seeing more information about that, it's on our website now. But we went through a pretty deep understanding of, and then ultimately communication strategy as the declaration of shortage along the Colorado River was made. What were those impacts, or are those impacts, to our future of commerce or future of industry, and ultimately for the residents of Arizona? And what I'm proud to tell you that well before my time, and probably many of our times, the state of Arizona has done an incredible job on water planning to ensure that we're in the position that we're in. But we obviously need to ensure we don't squander our position. So we need to continue to practice conservation and scarcity management. So the branding side is we try to get ahead of these challenging messages or facts and go out and talk to national markets about our current position on a variety of topics. And then lastly is competitiveness. So I spend probably more time than I would wish down at the Capitol to ensure that our brand is strong. 2, we have pro-business policies that support small and large business, and that we have the right P through 20 education funding, as well as modern infrastructure funding, transportation and so forth, as well as city tools to ensure that we can compete for higher quality jobs. And there's so much more to that, but with respect to time, I'm going to be brief. So this illustration here is just a snapshot from a year prior. So this is July of last year through June of this year. And we were so fortunate, even in the downturn, and we did a massive level of work with ensuring that the PPP monies and PR were available to help small business, because this was a full-blown triage effort that was needed to get small business back on their feet. But on the big business side, you'll see the yield on capital investment, high-wage jobs. The average wage of those jobs was $77,000. So we're bringing high-wage quality jobs that then help small business with other disposable income, as well as supply chain support across the region. In addition to that, this is just the last about 2.5 months worth of work. So you can see 7 new companies have located in the Valley, average wage of $87,000, 2,000 jobs. And again, I think what's important is that resident trade area flows do occur. So some of your residents are going into Mayo. Some of them are going into parts of Scottsdale down the 101, and vice versa. Some of those residents are coming here. So that's how we ensure that we're fortifying the regional position and kind of a rising tide lifts all boats mentality. The current pipeline is the healthiest it's ever been, shockingly, to be honest. I was not expecting the industrial pipeline and the super cycle of semiconductors to be as active as it was. So if anybody's read about Taiwan Semiconductor going into North Phoenix, this is a once-in-a-generation type of project. This will be billions of dollars of investment. It'll have massive supply chain implications. If you want to talk further, I'm happy to do that. I do think the office recovery is going to take about another three quarters to get back on its feet. That will impact this community, both small office users as well as large office users. Pretty much the North Scottsdale down the 101 corridor is predominantly office space. So when you have a softening office market with remote work and the hybrid return to work strategies, that's a softening of the entirety of the office labor market or office real estate market. But good news is the market will recover in office, and it's about 40% up on the industrial side, which no one could have predicted that kind of flow. So let's talk quickly about Fountain Hills. So we have a contract with this community for roughly $12,000, which is based upon a per capita participation level. And we have metrics that we adhere to on behalf of all of our communities and city level contracts. And really it's a voice at the table. It's a participation in the strategy and the regional economy. And we do appreciate the really strong active, not only support, but participation as well. So you can see here the funding request for this subsequent year will be $12,150. We're fortunate enough to have roughly about 2/3 of our funding, our nonprofit funding, comes from the private sector. So you're getting about a 2-to-1 match on your public funding that allows us to go out and do those things I described. And each community pays predicated on the size of the community. So the larger the community, the more they pay. So just quickly, what I wanted to finish with is kind of the intangible side of what we do. We were so fortunate to have Joe Bill and his team call us, I'm not sure how long ago that was now, but this Dark Sky initiative that came about and the focus on STEM is a really important ingredient to the success of our regional economy. We worked with him and his team, and I'm going to ask Colleen to come up and say a few words. She was really at the helm and the outreach side of this, and I promise you she'll be brief as well. But we did engage a number of core leaders in our community that I know have helped support the project and then ultimately advocated through the legislative process, which is not an easy thing to do. So with that, I'm going to introduce Colleen and have her say a few words.
Wonderful. Thank you, Chris. Mayor, council, thank you for your time today. So what's critical to just further validate what Chris is saying is that at GPEC, we really do take a unique approach to every community, every town that we work with here in the region. And so Fountain Hills is no different. And so with the unique location being recognized as a dark sky community, key members of our team did, jump in to support with the advancement of bringing the International Dark Sky Discovery Center here to Greater Phoenix, here specifically to Fountain Hills. And with that, in connecting with Joe Bill and Nancy Bill, who are here today, and the other key board members, which I know, Councilmember Magazine, you are as well, we've been able to support with critical marketing, public relations, and connection building to continue to advance this vision to bring this Dark Sky Center here. With 25% of the fundraising already in the bag, we're excited to continue to support this to get that to 100%. And we know that this is an incredible asset for Fountain Hills, but this is also putting internationally Fountain Hills and Greater Phoenix on the map in an amazing way to advance STEM education, but also to enhance the livability of the community, which is a critical aspect to economic development here in Greater Phoenix. And so that is what I have to say so far. I'm going to hand it back to Chris to close us out. Thank you.
Thanks. So I'd be happy to, Mayor and Council, answer any questions that you may have. I do sincerely appreciate the opportunity to come before you tonight. So with that, I'll hand it back to you, Mayor.
Thank you, Chris. Any questions from up here? Alan?
Not a question, but Chris, I want to thank you and your staff for the work you've done with Joe and Nancy Bill. I'm sure you can get some of the credit for the $2.5 million we got from the legislature, and I know you've been reaching out to possible donors. So I want you to know on behalf of our board how much we appreciate it.
Well, it's been our pleasure, Vice Mayor, and what an incredible team we have to work with, not only internally at GPEC, but Joe and Nancy and their team setting out the vision and then executing against that vision. It's very, very special for this community, and as Colleen said, for the region. This will be an asset that the region and state can ultimately celebrate.
Thank you. Yes, Sharon.
I don't have any questions. I just wanted to officially say hello. We've not actually met in person, and I see you at least once a month, if not 2 or 3 times a month, both of you. I have turned into such a political nerd, and really part of it is y'all's fault. So thank you. The meetings have been invaluable. I can't express how great. I do everything that I can that you guys have available for me to do. And thanks, it's great to meet you. I know you guys are doing great work for us and bringing all sorts of stuff into the state. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilwoman.
Thank you. Anyone on the phone have any questions for GPEC?
No, Mayor.
No? Okay, thank you.
No, thank you.
We did have our meeting. I don't know if it was a week or two ago either, but I know that one of the topics was housing, which is something that's on everybody's mind. It's really hard to find a place to live. So I know that you're looking at that a lot. Supervisor Chukri, because it's mayors and supervisors, he had asked about that also. He was wondering about the best approach because he hears that Austin and Dallas and Denver are facing the same issue, but it's a little new to us. One thing that he said, or that maybe you said that I thought was interesting, was that we were used to in Arizona letting the market kind of take, balance things, but it doesn't seem to be happening. So I just wanted to ask you to talk a little bit about that. Short-term rentals, besides the effect that it has on neighborhoods and such, and some of those things that we've talked about, the effect on the housing stock in Sedona, for example, and what maybe we could expect in the future.
Yeah, Mayor. So let me first start by saying there's different levels of stress and pressure on the housing market. So starting with, you mentioned short-term rentals, that's a whole nother conundrum that we're in where it affects neighborhoods. I have seen now there's new developments being slated across the U.S. that are master planned VRBO, Airbnb neighborhoods. So it's intended not to affect as it is today. So that's kind of one layer. Another layer that's very different is affordable housing. And that's another challenge that our market's really not experienced historically to the degree we are today. And so we want to make sure that first-time home ownership is not out of reach. Now, how you do that's a variety of different federal and state tax credits historically being provided to developers to build in certain areas. And there's no perfect, we've evaluated different markets across the country. There's no simple solution for that issue today. And to your point, we talked about letting the market, generally free market dictate the balance or the correction. The challenge there is we have a massive supply-demand imbalance. So what happens is demand keeps growing, the job market's really solid, so we're seeing appreciation in housing, and yet on the inverse side of that, our supply, we don't have the number of entitled lots at our disposal that we did previously. So you're seeing that demand pressure make it more competitive for housing. So then the latter element that we're focused on is workforce housing. So this is another element similar to affordable housing in a way, but when we're recruiting all these new enterprises in, it's no longer a value market conversation. We're tied into this issue of how do we support middle income individuals and their access to housing. So all of these are now front burner issues for us as we move forward.
I appreciate that. I know that we're kind of hearing that things might be normalizing a bit, but I saw this on the news and they said, except for areas like Fountain Hills and Scottsdale. So I think, it's acknowledged and we're all trying to do the best we can with that. We really appreciate your expertise and all of the work that you do on behalf of our region and our town. Any other questions or comments?
Actually, I just wanted to make one comment. You use the term affordable housing. That scares a lot of people. I think the key to the affordable housing, the workforce housing that we need to remember is we want a place for our nurses to live. We want a place for the fries worker to live, our restaurant servers to live. That's what we mean. We mean attainable housing.
Sure.
We aren't saying Section 8, which I hear all the time from our local residents that they're afraid that that's what we're actually talking about. So that's what you intended when you said that, right? Thank you.
Yes, yeah, Councilwoman, affordable housing is the nomenclature utilized nationally, but it is your middle income workers. And even, I'd argue you mentioned retail and service level workers. We need to find solutions for all of those particular individuals in our community. And again, the good news is we will see another cycle over time. There will be some level of correction over time. The other side of this token, however, is our jobs market. We're back to being a top job generating market in the United States. So people are continuing to flock here for opportunity. And that's what's creating this dynamic we're in.
Thank you. Well, we like that part of the problem, so. Thank you so much. Thanks for coming out. we were going to have a report from Captain Krasser. He couldn't be here tonight, but I just wanted to mention that when we do have him come back, we'll talk about some of the things that we've been hearing, concerns in town about 911 responses, which I think if you knew the process, it's not really MCSO that does that, but we just have to address that. And also we're going to talk more about our safety corridors and some of the effectiveness of some of the pedestrian and traffic safety items that we put into place. So we'll look forward to doing that in the second meeting in October. Next, we are going to hear a report from Valley Metro about our new bus route. Grady?
Yes, thank you, Mayor. Mayor and Council, as you're aware, we recently went and worked on a new express ride connection at the Gilbert Road Park and Ride. And our Deputy Town Manager, Dave Trimble, is going to provide you a little bit of an update on this and when it will start. Thanks, Dave.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. Good to be here tonight. Talk a little bit about our new bus route. Have just a few slides, it won't be long. Get this going. So yes, as Grady was saying, the new route will begin October 25th, and we're hoping for more ridership and a few more options for our residents. So let's see here. By way of background, just a few notes. Bus service changes aren't something that you can change quickly. They usually take around a year to occur. They really occur only in April or October of each year. And it takes about 6 months to get that approved, so it can easily be a year before those changes take effect. So it was about a year ago that Valley Metro was here to present some different options, and the option that was selected was the one that we are presenting here tonight, and that'll take effect in October. At that time, Valley Metro did a complete, comprehensive analysis for the town, and they mentioned that they projected about 33 riders would potentially use this new route, as opposed to 6 that are currently riding it. So we're hoping that's an improvement. The other things, Valley Metro did some outreach for this. They began in June, sending out emails. They did customer outreach. They did surveys. And so they start that process early and concludes kind of now with the sign out by the bus stop. And so the riders should be pretty well aware of the changes that are coming. And the last note up there, it's kind of almost like a pilot program. We have about 3 years worth of funding for this new route. And so we'll see what kind of results we get from the ridership on that. So here it is, here's the current route. So again, you can see there aren't a lot of riders on it. It's really one trip per day. It takes a long time. It takes about 90 minutes to get to the Capitol, which is a long time. The new route will take less, take about an hour. And if you want to connect to the light rail currently, it takes about an hour and 40 minutes. So the last time that this one will run is Friday, the 22nd of October. And here's the new route. So it's completely different. It's going to go down the B line and stop at that park and ride there on Gilbert and McDowell. And we're going to run 2 trips per day. And again, it should be easier to connect to the light rail, shorter duration. And to get to the light rail, it's about 40 minutes instead of an hour 40. So we're hoping for that it'll be more useful to the residents. One will leave at, there's 2 morning and 2 evening. So one We'll leave about 6:15, and the other one will leave about 7, and get down there and get to that stop in about 20 minutes. Downside is riders will have to connect to wherever they're going to go, but they'll have a lot more options. They can get to the light rail. Once they get there, they can connect to the entire bus service that Phoenix and the Valley runs. So that is really about it. I wanted to mention a couple of resources for residents. Valley Metro has a really good website. It's just valleymetro.org. And they just launched a new app for phones, for smartphones. And I downloaded that. It works pretty well. You can put in your destination, and it'll bring up different options for you to get to where you're wanting to go. And we also, in conjunction with Public Information, BO, we're doing outreach as well for this. BO put it in the Fountain Hills Insider. We have a web page on the town's website that outlines the transportation resources that are available to residents. And that's about it. That's the Valley Metro logo. Happy to try to answer any questions that I can.
Thank you. First, I want to point out that this has been a lot of work and a lot of good progress for David. We really appreciate it. Just before I go to Mike, who's our RPTA board member, I want to mention that we had GPEC here, and Sharon's on that board, and they talked about the Dark Sky Board, and Peggy in leadership, and the board positions that our other two members have, to just show you that Fountain Hills is at the table in a lot of areas and with a lot of different issues. So, Mike, did you want to say anything?
Yes, thank you, Mayor. You know, it's a big ask to have people ride public transportation these days. You know, it's a lot easier just to hop in your car and go where you need to go. But Valley Metro has really worked hard over the last few years to improve the routes and to have a more presence on the routes and the light rail. You know, there's always complaints about issues on, you know, on the light rail and stuff. So they have a lot more personnel riding the trains and the buses, and, you know, that old route that it's been around a long time, and it's gone down Shea, you know, all the way to the Capitol, and it's never been a huge participation. So hopefully with this, it'll be a little bit quicker, give people more options. So I just encourage people to try it out at least and see if, you know, if you work pretty much set hours somewhere that's accessible to these routes, it's a much more, you know, economical way to commute. And you know, like I said, Valley Metro is really working hard to improve all this stuff. And, you know, it's been a hard hit during the pandemic as far as the ridership, but that's slowly coming back as well. So just encourage people to try it out.
Any other questions or comments? Anyone
Mayor,
on the
if I may?
phone? Oh, yes, Grady.
Just want to say, Dave, you want to share where the funding's coming from? This is really kind of
Mm-hmm.
cool part. So it's not coming out of local taxpayers' money here. Where does it come from?
Right, so the funding that we have for this has been kind of built up over the past several years. The town receives about $65,000 per year from the Arizona Lottery funding. So that's what we have identified for this funding. So that'll be the bulk of what we can spend on this. We think the route itself will cost about $100,000 per year. So it will cover a lot of it. It won't cover all of it. The balance we have built up will carry us through those first 3 years. And then we'll have to see from there which way we want to go from after that. So
Thank
good
you.
point.
I forgot about that, Grady. Anybody on the phone have any questions or comments?
No, Mayor.
Thank you, guys.
No, Mayor. Thank you.
I don't know whether you know the answer to this, but do you know if they're planning on some outreach for folks that might be working in town? Or, like you said, now we do have the ability for it to connect with pretty much anything. Will they be doing any advertising? And do you know if there'll be any kind of ribbon cutting or an event to for the new route?
I think, Bo, I don't think they're planning an event like that. We kind of brought it up, and they said, well, it's probably not something that we would do. I know their public information person has been in contact with Bo, so I know he's planning some different things through social media, website, the regular avenues, but that's not something that we had planned at this point, but we can look at that.
Okay, well, maybe if they do, and if they've made any other changes, we can join in on any event they have, but more importantly, to make sure people know about that. I think even when we had the vouchers and such, they weren't used because people didn't know about them. And so I think that this would be worthwhile to get with them to, and Mike can help us with that too, to say, look, you know, we've got this many people that, because we've had a lot of surveys recently that show that people do commute out of town, and maybe this will open up some opportunities for them. So thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Our next item is call to the public. Do we have any speaker cards?
We do, Mayor. The only one we have is Dave Barty. Sorry.
Thank you. Good evening. Hi.
Good evening. Hi. My name is Dave Carabarty. My wife Marcia and I reside at 16225 Cerro Alto. Thank you for this opportunity. A preliminary plat was submitted on 8/25 by a developer for an 11-home subdivision at 16400 Log Lane, parcel number 176-21201. We are asking the town to not grant or allow any form of waivers, variances, cuts and fills, or rezoning resulting in the development of this single-family lot. This proposed subdivision is a major safety issue. Much more vehicle traffic would be exiting Log Lane, which is a very steep, short driveway to one house, and cannot safely handle traffic stacking up at the Golden Eagle stop sign, awaiting the opportunity to complete left or right turns onto Golden Eagle at the midpoint of one of the steepest streets in town with a speed limit of 35 miles an hour. And downhillers often reach 55. Golden Eagle is the major artery into town for the entire northwest quadrant. Vehicles turning left to accelerate up the incline would be quite slow, and turning right into downhill rushing traffic is dangerous. Plus, heavy traffic is exiting in both directions from 36 homes on Paradox, a mere 100 feet away, which adds to a very unsafe situation for motorists, bikers, and walkers. Construction equipment and large trucks have actually slid backwards and jackknifed trying to climb the hill when wet. And the unlawful use of engine braking is always employed by downhill truck drivers. The existence of heavy construction equipment would be present at this site for many years into the future. Log Lane is in violation of current town safety guidelines due to its proximity to Paradox. The town should not compound this unsafe situation by increasing vehicle traffic by 10 to 12 times beyond the one house currently entering and exiting from Log Lane onto Golden Eagle. Please make the safety of walkers, bikers, and motorists the town's #1 priority. For safety issues alone, this proposal should be disallowed by the town. Additionally, this development is on a very steep, narrow ridge and would likely require many ordinance and zoning revisions, be in violation of hillside disturbance rules, require many special cut and fill waivers, and be the cause of future soil erosion. It presents difficulty meeting road frontage, lot size, setback requirements, plus meeting the requirement to include a street side sidewalk for pedestrians in any new subdivision. Zoning is to protect our residents in town from poor development deals. We need to stop bailing out bad investment decisions made by developers via the town granting waivers, revisions, changes, etc. Any extension of Log Lane would require severe cuts and scarring of the steep ridge that the current house sits atop. As a town, we need to protect, not destroy our natural beauty. Vehicles often stop along the east side of Cerro Alto to photograph Four Peaks from this perspective, looking out over this unblemished property. Drive out here and see for yourself before you allow its destruction.
Sir, the time is up. Can you wrap it up, please?
Yes.
Thank you.
Several years ago, I met with the head of zoning, Bob Rogers, and he assured me that this lot could never be developed. We then built our home, and we've been there for 3 years. And it will, if this lot is developed, it will negatively impact the property values of 37 adjacent residences. Longtime residents have told me that someone tries to develop this property about every 10 years, and it has always been rejected by the town. Please continue to do so.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Mayor and council, I just want to let you know that Angela, my assistant, reached out to Mr. Carabardi today, and we have a meeting next week to discuss his concerns in greater detail that we couldn't do tonight.
Great, thank you. Yeah, you understand, we can't respond. Thank you so much. Next, we have our consent agenda. Unless anybody would like to remove anything, could I hear a motion?
Move approval.
Second.
All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you. Our regular agenda item begins with a public hearing, which I will open right now, and ask Grady to bring this forth.
Yes, Mayor and Council, Farhad is going to give the staff report on this item. With that, I'll turn it over to Farhad.
Thank you, Mayor Dickey. Good evening, members of the council. Thanks, Grady. Make sure I have it up this time. Okay, so the first item of the regular agenda is a special use permit for allowing residential use in a commercial zoning district. So currently the zoning ordinance allows residential uses in a commercially zoned property only by way or only through approval of a special use permit. And the subject for this particular case is the northwest corner of King Street and Saguaro Boulevards, which is zoned community commercial. Here I'm showing, quite obviously, the subject property located, as I said, at the immediate corner to the northwest of Saguaro and King Street Boulevards. The area that you see outlined in red there particularly is the subject. It's about 25,350 square feet in area, and so it's a little bit over half an acre. It's part of a much larger center that you see there. There is, I know some may be familiar with this site, but for the benefit of the public, I might mention some of the existing uses right now is the Anglican Church here facing King Street Boulevard. There's a martial arts studio and a dance studio a little further to the north. There's an office building kind of midway in between those row of lots that you see there. There are a couple of vacant parcels there as well, and then to the furthest north is the now defunct Appian Way restaurant. There's also a vacant parcel here at the corner there of, I believe that's, I'm sorry, I can't quite read the street name there, but it's just a few hundred feet north of the parcel there. And incidentally, there is the Saguaro Ridge condos here immediately behind those buildings that I just talked about to the west. So what you have before you in your staff reports is a detailed description of what the applicant has proposed for this immediate corner. So there are 3 buildings being proposed for this half-acre parcel. 2 of the buildings will feature live-work units. And so the arrangement there, the thought with that is the commercial use will primarily be located on the first floor. And what kind of commercial uses are we possibly talking about for this zoning district? Uses such as cafes, coffee shops, delis, which are typically allowed in the community commercial zoning district, insurance offices. And the second floor would primarily consist of the residential component of this live-work arrangement. The applicant is proposing 8 live-work units among these, within these 2 buildings. And then the building, beg your pardon. So the building furthest to the east here is the office condo that the applicant has proposed for the first floor. They'll feature office suites that would be leased out to various business owners. And the second floor would feature residential units independent in contrast to the other buildings, would be independent of the uses on the first floor. I've included color renderings that the applicant has provided. Now, this is looking from the intersection of Kingstree and Saguaro, looking towards the northwest. In the foreground, as I said, the applicant is proposing office uses on the first floor. This is the larger of the 3 buildings. And then 4 units on the second floor, again, independent of the first floor uses, residential units. Further in the back, I should say, even before that, should mention there is a courtyard that the applicant has proposed, which you might have seen on the site plan, which will feature, well, not only landscaping, but the outdoor seating element proposed for this particular project. Yes, ma'am.
The building closest to Saguaro, or however you say it, those are going to be rental condos. It's not going to be live work like the back 4.
That
I
is
mean,
correct.
they're completely separate than who's going to lease for business purposes the first floor.
Mayor,
Are they
Councilmember
live work?
McMahon. I beg your pardon?
Are they the live workstation? Like the back ones, you said that the person in the business is also going to have rights to live in the second floor.
Correct.
Is it the same for the first building, or is no?
It is not, no. Mayor, Councilmember McMahon, the first and second floor, if you're looking at the uses and how they integrate, they're actually mutually exclusive of one another. So the first floor will consist of office suites, presumably to be leased out, but there's no really, correct, there's no, it's not integrated with the second floor residential units necessarily. Whereas the live-work units that you see in the background, it is integrated, connected by a staircase. So the first floor would feature primarily the commercial uses, whether it's a cafe or insurance office. I should mention at this point, the applicant has not received any commitments to locate in this project should it be approved. So at this point, we don't know of any potential tenants, but in concept, the applicant would like this arrangement, and he's here and he can explain it in more detail.
Yeah. Excuse me, I have a couple of questions.
Yes.
The first floor offices, can they be converted to commercial?
Mayor, Councilmember Magazine, by right, if we just look at the zoning ordinance and what is allowed in the community commercial zoning district, they can potentially be converted to commercial. It would require some significant modifications, I would imagine.
But they can by right.
I beg your pardon?
But they can by right.
They can by right, correct.
And how about the second floor residences? Can they be converted? by right?
They actually can be converted by right. And that I had planned on talking about the implications for parking a little bit later. But what the council and actually the general public should keep in mind that this particular property is by right zoned for commercial. So there may potentially, a developer may potentially come in and locate commercial uses on both floors. That implies a significant demand for parking. So if a tenant were to come in sometime in the future and request a building permit or a tenant improvement, they would have to ensure that there's adequate parking provided in the common parking area that I showed you earlier, which I'll talk about a little in more detail a little bit later. But just what I should let you know up front, there is about 174, in my last count, 74 parking spaces, 174, including 9 ADA units. And if I can just go back to the, you see the common parking area there. There's 174 units, or excuse me, 174 parking stalls, including 9 ADA units.
I'm not sure I fully understood what you said in this regard. If any of this was converted to commercial as opposed to offices, that would likely increase the number of spaces necessary, correct?
It most definitely will.
But they would not have to come back to staff or council to make those adjustments. Is that correct?
It will have to come to staff. We would need to review the building permit for whatever use is being proposed for any one of these units. The applicant would need to demonstrate that there is adequate parking at the time of submittal at the common parking area there in the center of this development.
I want to put a little finer point on it. You're saying even after it's developed, they decide to make the offices commercial, they have to come back to staff regarding parking?
That is correct. We will need to review a building permit or tenant improvement for each individual unit. Yes.
Can I just make a point of clarification? An office is commercial. I mean, we're not changing the zoning into any more commercial than it already is, right?
Mayor, that is correct, yes.
So we're not saying that if they come in, right now, the only thing they're asking for is to turn some of the commercial into residential.
That is
But
correct.
later, if they wanted to be all commercial office or not, that's the way it's zoned right now.
Correct, Mayor. I would just add that an office use, compared to all the other allowable uses in this particular zoning district, probably has the least parking demand. Whereas if you were to locate a cafe or even a medical office, given that, for example, just by way of example, a doctor's office, it would require to accommodate assistants, nurses, receptionists, so on. So that would carry even more demand than, say, for example, an insurance office. And so we would look at that the same way and see if the parking demand.
No, okay, I understand that. It just was the idea of saying converting to
Right.
commercial is not, it is commercial.
Right.
Mike?
Yeah, no, Mayor, I was just going to pretty much say the same thing. I mean, what we're being asked to consider tonight is to approve the residential use on this property, 12 units that can't be there right now because it's all commercial. So I think it's important to clarify that.
I have a question. The parking. If you look at how there's a lot of parking spaces to the west and then to the north, there's more parking spaces. Are they going to, the people who utilize this particular office building and living space, do they have a right to utilize all those parking spaces? Or are there just going to be a set number that'll be basically assigned to this particular building unit? Is that going to pose a
Just so I'm
problem?
clear, Mayor, council member, just so I'm clear, are you
Right.
referring strictly to this common
Mhm.
parking area?
Mhm.
Yes, that is available to the area that's known as Plat 202, which is actually what this development was subdivided as about 50 years ago. So anybody within Plat 202,
Do you think that if I were an existing business there, I would want to make sure that I also had a certain number of parking units that will be either set aside or designated for me, so that if we have this influx of commercial and living space, that I would be certain that my patrons was able to park there as well? Is anything going to be done to accommodate existing businesses and their parking spaces?
for existing spaces, well, Mayor, council member, okay, so certainly the uses that are there right now, the parking is given, 174 parking spaces is adequate. Now, as far as tenants moving into this new building or any other of the parcels there for that matter, you're looking at those 2 vacant parcels there to the north, considering some of the vacancies, it pretty much works as on a first-come, first-served basis. If we were looking at a restaurant wanting to locate there, they certainly have quite a bit of parking available to them. Now, as these tenants, as they come in, there would be more and more parking demand in that common area. Whatever use is proposed 2 years, 5 years, 20 years down the line, the applicant at that time would need to demonstrate that there's enough off-street parking to accommodate them.
Farad, in the little packet we received up here from positive comments for the project, there's one from Michelle Kern. She's the property manager. So there is a property owners association for the plat. And I understand the applicant is currently, for some reason, that lot it's not in there right now, but he has indicated he's going to join that POA. But couldn't the POA kind of work with all the tenants and businesses that are there in terms of, if some are like, well, I need 6 spaces with my signage. I mean, isn't that more or less up to the property owner association? I mean, it's not up to the town to dictate that, right?
Mayor, Councilmember Charnot, we would hope that that discussion would take place at at a great extent before coming to the town to request a permit, building permit, and
But I
have
mean,
that squared away.
but any usage of that parking lot right now, I mean, if there's tenants or property owners within that plat that want certain stalls or signage, that's between the plat and the POA, right? That's really not our purview.
Right. Mayor, Councilmember, when you're referring to signage, are
Well,
you
let's say,
referring to
the church, I mean,
Okay.
they have people come every Sunday, and let's say the church, like, well, we really need X number of spaces for our parishioners. I mean, that's not something the town's going to get involved in. That's up to the plat and the POA to determine how they're going to, have the jurisdiction over that property, right? It's not a public parking lot per se owned by the town. It's owned by the POA, right?
Yeah, that is
So-
correct. Yeah, we would hope that the property owners will work with one another.
Yeah, so I just want to, from my standpoint, that's not an issue that we should be considering tonight, because that's really not within our jurisdiction in terms of our thinking of approving this permit or not, at least in my opinion.
Correct. Yeah, and to echo your point, that this is the special use permit case is only about introducing the residential units in a commercial area. Some of the current concerns may be, well, if you introduce residential units, something that's far less intense than a commercial unit. Well, how does that affect the inventory of commercial properties in the town? Will you be losing, any potential for more businesses and so on? So,
Actually, I own a piece of property in Tract 208, which is similar property owner association. As a building owner or a renter, you go in there and you realize that that parking belongs to everybody. If my little 300 square foot building wants to house whatever the maximum fire person capacity would be, thank you, Chief Ott, whatever that max is, I get the parking spaces that day. If the people aren't there, then, if the spaces aren't there, then they have to park elsewhere on the street. That's just what you buy into when you get that kind of property. And with this being Tract 202 or Plat 202, I don't know what the official name is, and the documentation that Councilman Sharno just pointed out, that's what happens in this particular area as well. They knew going in that it was 174 spots, so if you sign the lease, if you make the purchase of the building, you know that you're sharing parking with everybody.
any more questions before I continue? Okay. I believe this is where I left off, and the only thing I might add there is, each lot, this lot is required to provide its own retention. You'll see in the foreground, the applicant has contemplated some generous landscaping there in the front there to kind of embellish the street corner there in terms of appearance or curb appeal.
What's the height?
Okay, good question. Mayor, council member, the height limit in the zoning district is 25 feet. And so the applicant is proposing 25 feet. If we look at the design guidelines, the town in the design guidelines actually happen to be in the zoning ordinance. There may be some allowance for nominal increases in height to accommodate, like, say, undulating roof line, just as an architectural feature, in addition to varied wall planes, things like that. But the height limit is 25 feet, and that would include things like HVAC systems and things like that to be located on top.
Looks like you're going to have 25-foot trees there. I'm being somewhat facetious.
Okay, so here, offering another perspective, I believe this would be looking south from the parking lot. To the right, again, you have the live-work units, obviously the courtyard in the middle with the outdoor seating, and to the left, the applicant is proposing office suites on the first floor with the residential units on the second floor. And please keep in mind, Mayor, council members, at this point, these are renderings. Should the council move to approve this, the applicant still has to go through at least one more entitlement process with the town, which will be done at the administrative or the staff level. They would still need to, and that entitlement process is a site plan review, in which we would receive something more detailed than these conceptual plans and discuss in more detail the architectural treatments and issues such as like trash enclosures to be located on the site, things like that. So just about wrapping up here. So the zoning ordinance does establish standards for review for both the Planning and Zoning Commission and the Town Council. I've summarized them here. The town is expected to look at the nature of the use and how it integrates or take a look at its place in relation to the surrounding properties. Special conditions are things that the town should consider in the proposed location of buildings, parking, etc. Traffic impacts and the influence of adjacent uses, which we've discussed at length as well. I'd like to, before I close completely, I'd like to discuss some of the concerns that were brought up just prior to the Planning and Zoning Commission, and then since the Planning and Zoning Commission meeting. One of which is the parking, which I believe we've talked at great length already. The other is concerns about the prominence of, or the scale of this particular project at this corner, and how that might affect visibility issues at the intersection, or even view sheds from the neighboring uses, or I should say the neighboring residential uses in particular. I almost did the same thing I did last month here. Let's look at the aerial. So with regard to the scale, as I mentioned before, the height limit for development is at this particular intersection, particularly for the zoning district, is 25 feet. Other development standards that would apply here, well, with regard to setbacks in the CC commercial district, there are 0 setbacks required. So technically buildings can be located right up against the property line. However, we shouldn't discount the fact that there's retention required. There are landscaping requirements. A certain number of plants from the plant palette would need to be included from each type of tree, shrub, ground cover, so on, and lot coverage as well. We did receive a letter of opposition on the date of the Planning and Zoning Commission meeting from the Saguaro Ridge condominiums immediately to the west, right here, outlining a number of reasons why they are in opposition, most of which some of the concerns we've touched upon already. But there was some concern about blocking views towards the east from these condos. What I should note here is we were looking at the contour lines, the existing contours between the subject property and those condos immediately to the west of this commercial area. There's about a 16-foot grade differential. So the 25-foot building height limit, 16 feet, so about 9 feet that could potentially affect the view, but certainly not the entirety of the 25 feet. There was some concern about the thought that perhaps sometime in the future, especially with the live-work units, whether or not that second floor can be, a tenant can come in and convert that second floor to a residential unit and basically split off from the live-work arrangement with the use underneath. So essentially you would be having 2 units instead of 1. The first floor would be commercial and the second floor would be residential. To that, staff would respond by saying that this special use permit is to allow what the applicant has detailed in their proposal, and that is for the total of 12 residential units altogether. If they wanted to, if the applicant or whoever the owners at the time wanted to go beyond that, they would have to go through this process all over through the public hearing process again. Also with that, I would say that each building or I should say each unit, there are fire rating requirements. So that would require some significant and expensive modifications. And of course, that would need to come through the town first, and the town would look at the entitlements tied to this property and note the fact that there are only so many units allowed with the special use permit request.
Thank you.
And finally, if I may look at my notes real quick.
Can I ask a quick question?
You may, yes.
Aren't the existing buildings that are there all or most two-story? I kind of feel like they all are.
Mayor, council member, I believe the there is an office building in the middle of this. If I remember correctly, I can say with certainty that one is consists of 2 stories.
So like that's the one in the center, so that's probably
Yeah,
the one too.
L'Edifice, I believe it's called. I can't say with certainty how many stories the other buildings are. Of course, you have the church. I believe it's 1 story. And then the Appian Way, the former restaurant, I believe is 1 story as well.
So if council has any other comments, we could move to speaker cards. Do we have any? Yes, we do. Why don't we do that, and then we can wrap up the hearing and take a vote. Thank you. I'm sorry? Oh, whichever way you'd like to do it. Is that the way you'd like to do it? Have the applicant go first?
Yeah, I think it'd probably be helpful to have the applicant speak.
Okay.
And they are here. Did you want to introduce who the?
Thank you.
Yes, Mayor, council members, we have the applicant Dan Kaufman here to address any of your questions.
All
I
right.
believe he also has some preliminary comments as well.
Thank you. Hi.
Mayor, Vice Mayor, council members, good afternoon. Dan Kaufman. And I'm the applicant coming in. So I'll talk a little about the project because there's some questions that were brought up that I can answer. The project will consist of approximately 18 office suites on the lower level, conference room and a break room for coffee, copies, etc., and outdoor seating in the courtyard. Office tenants will include accountants, real estate, stock, mutual fund companies, insurance, home managers, maybe attorneys, computer business, investment companies, and many small entrepreneurial businesses with built-in furniture. There'll be large windows for natural light and LED lighting throughout. The 4 condos up above will be 4 2-bedroom luxury condos above the offices with patios front and rear. This will offer the condo owner the ability to have an office down below or enjoy the food businesses next door in the center courtyard for everybody. The live-work buildings, A and B, will consist of 8 units, 4 each. Depending on market conditions, I'm requesting an option to maybe decrease building B if somebody wants a larger unit to have a less 1 unit to 3, but keeping the same footprint and maintaining the same total square footage. The lower area will be used as bagels, wine, brewery, pizza, art studios, hair, nail salon, health professional, accountant, flooring company, engineering, development companies. The upper area will be utilized as part of the lower area. For example, sitting area for sandwiches, wine, food, preparation, social events, or living while managing their own business. Here's an example: a civil engineer could use a lower front for customer meetings and the back for survey equipment, and upstairs for his engineering offices. This will create a true live-work atmosphere. Outdoor patios for seating will be included in the courtyard. Garage doors with glass in the front and the rear of the building will allow more natural light and able to open to allow customers to sit outside with their coffee and bagel and sandwiches. Deliveries to the building will be available through the rear of the building. There's parking back there. The exterior rear elevations will match the front and they will be completed prior to that. Live work will be constructed on the interior up to framing to allow owners to make customizations to their preferred business. Owners will need to get a permit for tenant improvements through the Town of Fountain Hills and the Property Owners Association, which will keep businesses under town codes and zoning appropriate businesses. How do we attract and keep small entrepreneurial business to Fountain Hills? It was interesting because the gentleman that was here was talking about costs and businesses. A mixed-use development urban district consisting of office, condos, live-work units, we need to bring exciting new products to stay and live, work, and play in Fountain Hills. They will all benefit from each other utilizing the other's services. Look at the vacant commercial lots around town. 50-plus years, we should be getting closer to built out. We need to change this by allowing more diverse businesses types for people to live where they work and own their own businesses to create more of a vibrant and livable town. Let's open our eyes to have a town which was planned over 50 years ago and has never been completed. We need to adapt to today's changing market. Neighborhood mixed-use businesses are an essential part of a commercial office residential setting. COVID has changed the way large corporate companies do business. They will be looking at smaller local office suites. Big box stores, for example, the Target Center, are closing, and corporate businesses are downsizing to be more efficient and specialized. Businesses are looking for more flexible and efficient space. Lengthy commutes to downtown Phoenix are changing. Corporations are looking for hybrid models. Smaller spaces, less driving, and more productivity. Live, work, office reduces production costs and travel time. We need to change to keep more business and shoppers to stay in town. Comments and concerns were brought up during the P&Z meeting. After further research, I have more information that I didn't have at that time. First, I would like to address the concerns from the Villa's neighbors behind from a letter dated August 9th that you all have received to the Town of Fountain Hills. Paragraph 1 says, as an association, we are opposed to granting of a permit that allows higher usage of the property than originally contemplated by the zoning ordinance. Comment number 1 after that says section 1201B of the Fountain Hills zoning ordinance states that the CC district can provide for modest commercial. This proposed use is not modest. This is the letter. The allowable building footprint on this zero lot line, 50,700 square foot can be built on it. Yes, 50,700 with no approvals needed as long as it is conforming to the zoning. I am proposing 45% of that, just 22,800, with a minimum of 10-foot landscape setbacks, minimum, a 40-foot plus courtyard in the middle, and if you take less of condos because they're residential, they have less parking use, we're at 17,400. I consider this very, very modest. Comment number 2, increased traffic. The streets for this commercial area were designed for this traffic. Again, I'm going from feasible 50 to 22. Comment number 4, dumpsters and noise. We've seen the distance from this lot to the villas in the back. Yeah, does this one work? Okay, so from the property that I'm building on to the condos in the back, it's 200 foot. Plus, you've already heard from the staff that it's 16 foot higher. Comment number 4, which was dumpsters and noise, and this is on your list. So they're already established in this, there's already dumpsters on there, just like the Plat 208 that are already established. So there will be no need for more dumpsters, they're already there. In the distance, again, you're 200 foot from, over 200 foot from that to the back of those there. With the businesses, office people, and people living in the condos, they won't want any excessive noise either. And then the dumpsters. The layout of the buildings, which you've seen, the 2 buildings in the back actually will offset. All the courtyard will have the people there. So even for views and noise, those buildings are going to block all that. Comment number 5, the Appian Way building has been empty almost a decade in several spots at the Target Center. Just to inform you, the Appian Way has been sold. And Target is a big box, and it's not comparable to this project. The proposed use is a smaller concept. Comment number 7, is there adequate parking? There's 180 parking, 174 or 80 parking, and this was designed, when it was designed for build out, this parking was already designed for this larger building and stuff. Again, you've talked about the plat manager, 15 years. She said, we'd be happy to have that parking lot full. And the plat was designed with enough parking included originally. With the condos and less commercial, there'd be a lot less parking required. Comment number 8, perhaps a better, this is from the neighbors, perhaps a better solution would be to change the zoning where possible to allow residential use based on the demand in that market. So what they're asking is a better solution would be change the zoning where possible to allow residential use based on the demand in that market. You know what? I totally agree with that because that's what we're voting on tonight for residential use on this property. I have developed several properties in town over almost 30 years, and the neighbors usually don't want something built next to them. When they bought, I'm sure they knew this would be built on someday. I have sold my office executive building down the street recently on the avenue, and this was a similar concept, and even with market conditions in a downturn, we were consistently staying at 75 to 95% full occupancy. So I understand the concept of the small office retail market. I've had that building for almost 25 years. I will be keeping a work-live for myself and my office and staff at this new location. Thank you, and I appreciate your support. Any questions?
Thank you, Mr. Kaufman. Any questions? No? Okay, why don't we go with comments then, and then we'll see if the council or anybody on the phone has any further comment.
Thank you.
Thanks.
The first one is Vincent Virgilia.
My name is, is it all right to speak? Yeah. My name is Vince Virgilio. I've been in Fountain Hills since 2012. I was a current resident of New Jersey, South Jersey, and this is going to be my new residence and where I want to retire. And I have a business that I educate technicians all over the country, and I've been to almost every state and almost every city in this country. And why did I pick Fountain Hills to retire and live at? It's because of these people. It's one of the best communities I've ever seen. And whoever's running the ship here is doing a fantastic job. I mean, I came here and I visited it. I fell in love with it, and for one reason, is everybody was wonderful. People were nice. And you know how I found that out? From the little stores that I stopped and had coffee, and the little shopping centers where there was a Starbucks, and where I went to the parks that are beautiful parks, and everybody was kind. They all wanted to talk from all different parts of this country. They come here to live. And what a better place to come to live and then have a place like this. This is fantastic. It's just another way of putting another feather in your cap. It's a wonderful, wonderful idea.
I think it's fantastic. It's a really nice project. So that's my thoughts. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Next is Doug Katonik. Is that, I'm sorry.
Good evening, Mayor and council members. My name's Doug Katonik, and I can't help wondering if there's anybody that's lived in this town more than 45 years. Anyway, I have. I've seen a lot of changes. I've had a few businesses myself. I started with Glenn Robertson. I started the Finishing Touch back in 1980. I started my own art school in 76, had it for 12 years. I started Que Bueno in 1982, and I've been a member of numerous organizations and a charter member of the American Legion. And I could go on, but I don't want to bore you. Anyway, I look at this, and I've seen so many people come and go in this town that they came here with a dream. And quite a few of these people ended up leaving because they couldn't make it. I feel that if we'd had this kind of a facility back then, there would have been a lot more people would have been able to afford to work and live in the same building. I know when I owned Que Bueno, I thought about selling my house and moving upstairs. And it was kind of frowned on then. I know there were a few people in town who managed to do that. And I've always been a proponent of that. It just makes a lot of sense. You could keep an eye on your building, your business, and I think it's a great concept, and I'm 100% for it. Thank you.
Jim Tate.
Oh, hi, everybody. I recognize some faces up there. My name is Jim Tate, and I've owned a business in Fountain Hills since 1975, and I've resided here also since 1975, so I've seen a lot of changes. I've known Dan Kaufman for probably 28 years, and he's quite a successful guy, kind of a visionary, I always thought, and this project here, to me, is a great concept. That plat over there needs something. It's just kind of, you notice it every time you drive by. It's just kind of a lot of open area there. So I'm a firm believer in all my years out here and loving this town like I do, that we need more projects like this and visionary projects too. I think it's a great thing. Please approve it. Thanks.
Steve Alonso.
Good evening, Mayor, Council Member. My name is Steve Alonso. I run and operate a small little mom and pop mortgage company, and I just love this concept. I've been involved in a couple work-live projects. I did a Soho project in North Scottsdale. It was great. It brought in artists and architects, and I got to meet some really cool people. And being a small business owner, this is something perfect for me. Somewhere I can live upstairs, I can work downstairs, and it allows me to have the freedoms and travel in life and not have to worry about locking up every night and having a nice little secure place for me to run my business. So, very unique project. I think it'll bring some new faces to your guys' community. I've been around a lot of communities, and I see this community, a lot of buildings are a little older looking and aren't as modern looking as maybe some other areas, and maybe this might attract some younger up-and-coming professionals, architects and stuff to your community. So I recommend that you please approve it. Thank you.
Gerard Beskeklia, sorry.
Better than most. My name is Gerard Bishelia. I'm a 30-year resident of Fountain Hills. I also serve on the Strategic Planning Commission, but I'm appearing as a private citizen. Not much more that I can add than what others have already said. I think it's a great project. I think it's being built by a great builder, and I think that's very important to be said. Dan has an incredible reputation for quality, consistency, following up on his word, and he has unbelievable dedication to this town. So I think that we couldn't ask for a better developer than Dan to do something like this. And as all of us know who have been here a while, that corner's been empty since we've been here. And I remember having a conversation with somebody about building the apartment on Avenue of the Fountains, and they said, "Oh, I don't like that thing, it's ugly." And I said, "So you were a big fan of that empty dirt lot?" So I feel the same way about a parcel like this. Dan has come forward with a very creative idea. It'll bring a new variety of buildings into the town, of opportunities and offerings into the town, and it'll put a piece of land to use that's been sitting dormant for decades. And thank you very much.
Candace Miller.
Hi, good evening. I brought some photographs with me. Should I hand them out to you, or I brought one for everybody? Okay, and the reason my issue, I guess, is the traffic in this particular location. I moved here 16 years ago, and I moved here from a quiet area, a beautiful little town in Pennsylvania. And I wanted to find another community that was similar to where I left, and for, retirement purposes. So I looked all over the Phoenix area, and Fountain Hills was definitely what I was looking for. It's peaceful, it's quiet, it's beautiful, there isn't a lot of traffic, and personally, whenever I go anywhere else, I get a sigh of relief as I enter the town, because I know I'm gonna be in a beautiful place with not high-end traffic. So I initially owned a home in the other end of town. It's called Echo Hill, and it's very quiet and really nice. I relocated to this area, this neighborhood, about 3 years ago, and I have to say, if I had had any idea how bad the traffic was going to be in that area, I wouldn't have moved. First of all, you have a huge amount of traffic pouring in off of Saguaro. Coming in. Can I take this off or no? Okay. I just have a hard time talking in these things. The people that come in off the B line and they come up to Saguaro, it's just severely, especially during snowbird time. So when you're at the corner, this is at the corner, the picture of I'm on Kingstree and I'm looking up Saguaro. So you have to first look right, and then you always have a lot of traffic there. So it's more dependent on, looking to your left, which is I am in that picture. So it's really difficult to turn left because you have the hill, which is right there, right before Elmhurst, where the church is. And then you have, people are coming down the hill, and it's hard to see around the corner. So you're looking to the left and you're trying to figure out what's going to the right with all that traffic coming in, and it makes it extremely difficult to turn left. You can't turn left on Elmhurst because of the church and the hill that's there. So if you don't live in this area, I would like to recommend you going down Kingstree and try to turn left and see how difficult it is, because it's challenging. So I foresee at some point you would have to probably put in a traffic light if this building goes through, and all these condominiums, luxury condominiums. I really don't understand how anyone would buy a luxury condominium without a designated parking spot. But hey, that's not my, choice to make. But anyhow, I just foresee this becoming a real hazard as far as traffic. And I love Fountain Hills the way it is. I love the peace. I love the quiet. I would love it to stay as it is, and I do not look forward to this at all. It's just, I see it's going to be trouble down the line.
Yeah, thank you,
And
ma'am.
that's
Thank
it.
you.
So thank you very much for your time.
You bet.
Aaron Brown.
Mayor, Vice Mayor, Council, thank you. First, I'd like to say I absolutely support development. It needs to happen, needs to continue to happen. Obviously, residential market's big, and we need that. But I'd also like to say I do have experience in big project management. I recently just finished a $500 million project nearby. And so I do have experience in this. And one of the things that I note here that hasn't been done is a traffic study. And normally in anything that I've ever done, when we look at special use permits and such and changing what was designated in zoning that would be required. I'd also like to say that, planning and zoning has said no to this already, their recommendation. And it was for lots of reasons that were discussed already. But I think the biggest issue in this is that in similarly situated areas in town, there's designated parking for residents. And specifically Saguaro and Palisades, there's underground parking. But the problem here is that at some point when the rest of the build-out happens, you do have capacity, there is a church service or something like that, and there's not designated parking for the residents, then the overflow is going to end up on the streets. And that's 24/7, whereas commercial obviously is only during business hours. So in essence, I think on the backs of the neighbors, the concern would be that we're going to have cars parked there 7 days a week, 24 hours a day, 365 days a year for residents, and it'll probably devalue the area because it'll look like a used parking lot because these cars are always parked there. And that's different than you would see in commercial. So I do support many things on this, but I think if you do vote today, there needs to be some sort of admonishment that dedicated parking needs to occur. And I think in the benefit of all the neighbors, underground would be the best, or some other parking structure so that we don't see cars parked in the parking lot all the time. That's all I have to say. Thank you very much.
Tom Frank.
Good evening, Council and Mayor. I've been here 12 years, and I attended the Zoning Commission hearing on this matter, and I have great respect for Mr. Kaufman, and there's nothing personal here, and there's been many people that are speaking in his favor, and I can understand that. But I live up King Street a ways, and the difficulty that the lady addressed as far as the traffic on Saguaro, I think we're all aware of it because we all live here. And the northbound lane on Saguaro, I believe its left turn capabilities only has a setup of about 4.5 cars to try to make a left turn there. The entrance ways into this parcel are such that it's a difficult location. Perhaps the price was right and that's how the property was purchased, I don't know. But I remember during the zoning hearing, there was a setback situation of 12 feet for residential and I believe it was 6 feet or something for commercial. Well, that's not really been discussed here. In the concept drawing that the architect present, he showed a large sidewalk and area crossing around Saguaro and King Street and so on and so forth. Interesting where that space is. The traffic is an issue that's probably going to require a stop and go light eventually, because when you try to make a left there, it's difficult. It's a downhill slope coming south on Saguaro, which we're all aware of. People that making a right turn to enter that location where that, I guess, just purchased restaurant is, or what's it, Saddle Brown Grill or something like that. You have to watch yourself, and that's going southbound. Northbound's a difficult situation. As far as the parking spaces, they've been there, and they have been there a long time. There's a church, I don't belong to that church, but there's a church there, and it was just like, well, hell, we got 173 spots that's available. There's no dwelling there yet. This mixed bag about residential, commercial sounds good, but if you could look at the development that took place, Park Place, or whatever it's called over there on King, whatever, the Fountain Hills Boulevard, to live above and office down below, not too big a success yet, is it? And it's been a few years, and now it's been sold to some foreign country, I believe, as I recall. So it sits there with a lot of vacancies. There's vacancies throughout the whole town, and you're all aware of it. And this concept of COVID and all this other thing, that sounds nice, that's really great. However, they provide an office location and a live location is kind of crazy. Dumpsters, they have to be taken care of. There isn't adequate dumpsters there when you start adding commercial and residential. You know, garbage has to go somewhere. So the whole concept is great, but many times I look at it and I think, it's a great idea, but what are you trying to do? Build a ship with all kinds of uses for that ship, not just a cruise ship, but a live-in ship and everything else, and putting it in a little bitty bottle. And it's too small a bottle for the ship that they're trying to put in there. That's all I got.
Thank you.
Tom Jensen?
Good evening. The problem, I'm here to mostly give you a warning. With the setback they've got in these drawings, you're going to turn that intersection into something that's going to be very much like Colony, trying to left turn off of Colony to southbound Saguaro, where you're out in the middle of the street because you're trying to look around a sign that says Messenger Mortuary on it. If you go west on King Street, all the houses and everything are set back, probably 25 feet. You should do the same thing there. You're going to be sitting out in the intersection trying to peek around the corner of a building, and you're going to have accidents. You're probably going to have a stoplight. Why don't you at least save the taxpayers some money and make the developer put the light in before they start building anything? I don't know about the building or any of the rest of it, but you're going to turn that intersection into something that's going to be really not good. Please do us a favor. At the very least, make them give you a 25-foot setback on all the streets so that you've got some room so you can see what you're doing. Thank you.
That's all the speaker cards. I did hand out some written comments that came into the office prior to the meeting today. And there were 6 statements from Ron Tavella, Stephen Vargo, Michelle Kern, Dan Fan, Jean Slechta, and Betsy Lavoy with the Chamber, all in favor of this project.
Thank you. Vice Mayor?
Could I ask staff a question or two? What is existing zoning on the property?
The existing zoning of the subject property, Mayor, Council Member, is community commercial.
And what could be built there without a special use permit?
What could be built there are any number of uses allowed under the community commercial district, some of which have been proposed by the applicant, all of which...
I'm having a little trouble hearing you.
Oh, I beg your pardon. A number of uses would be allowed under the community commercial district. The uses that the applicant has proposed...
I'm asking what could be built there without a special use permit. Can you give me
I beg your pardon, I'm sorry. What could be built there?
Existing zoning, can you give me a couple of examples?
Yes, restaurant, cafe, offices, medical offices, many other uses that you see there.
Without a special use permit, by right?
Correct.
By right?
Yes, yes, sir.
And what kind of controls would we have if somebody, say, wanted to put in a restaurant in terms of parking and so on? Is that established by ordinance?
Mayor, Councilmember, correct. The zoning ordinance, there's actually a parking schedule in the zoning ordinance that dictates the amount of parking required, usually on a square foot basis, sometimes by according to occupancy within a building.
Do you happen to know the distance from the front of the building to the street, what the setback is, or approximately?
Well, actually, I could go back here and see if I can eyeball eyeball it here with the site plan. Okay. So, Mayor, council members, according to this site plan, there's actually a 10-foot public utility easement, if I'm not mistaken, 10 feet within the property line, so that would have to be kept clear. I see, other than that, I see that the applicant is proposing buildings right up against that easement, so there would be a 10-foot gap between that and the property line, and then beyond that, you would have the town's right-of-way, which would include the sidewalk and landscaping.
Has there been any discussion with the applicant about having more of a setback from the street? I do believe that there could be real traffic issues trying to turn left from Kingstree onto Saguaro. I've done it. It's not easy. On 1 or 2 occasions, I've actually taken a right, gone down Saguaro, and done a U-turn in order to be able to do that. I don't know how to correct that situation unless there's some way the applicant can do more of a setback. Having said that, when I hear what could be built on there without a special use permit, it tells me that while it's not perfect, this may be a better solution than leaving a dirt lot there and letting somebody come along and build something else by right, which we'd have almost no control over. I think Dan Kaufman has been part of this community for a long time, and as people testified, he has a very good reputation as a builder. Personally, I think this proposal, and I've been over there, would greatly enhance the area. I am concerned about the traffic.
While I do agree with traffic concerns, I feel like it's going to be a concern no matter what we put in there. And if you're looking at residential versus commercial, there will be less cars with the residential. I don't know that that's arguable. That being said, what is being presented to us tonight is the special use permit for the residential. The commercial lot itself, if he were to build this as a commercial lot, as I understand it, without all the residential stuff, which is what's before us today, it would be approved. And pretty much all he would have to do would be to bring to us the picture of the final drawing to approve, to look at, right? So while I agree traffic is going to increase, it doesn't matter what he puts in there. Traffic is going to increase. What I see on the agenda is we're here to discuss and approve the special use permit, which is the residential stuff upstairs.
I'm wondering if Justin could come up quick. So if we have a 10-foot POE in there, what typically would the sidewalk be, 6 feet or less, or do we know?
Madam Mayor, council member, the subdivision ordinance requires a minimum of a 6-foot wide sidewalk in that area, which is, I believe, currently existing.
Okay. And then, is there any line of sight issues there presently in terms of the slope of southbound Saguaro?
There are certainly some line of sight issues in regards to the landscape improvemements that are within the right-of-way, but under the management of the plat. And when we have challenges with that, we notify them, and they either trim or remove the vegetation that is creating the line of sight issue.
But that's usually further up on the plat, right? I mean, more north? I mean, what about this corner?
This particular corner, we are not experiencing any issues there at this time.
And then in the future, as development occurs anywhere in town, I mean, we're looking at possible traffic light up on Palisades and, what is it? Eagle Ridge or, I mean, these are the things that we adjust for as development occurs and growth happens throughout the town, correct? I mean, you keep traffic counts, and we keep abreast of all these changes that might require improvements, correct?
Council member, while I do not have the documents related to the original development agreement for this property, rest assured that the engineer at that time would have reviewed and considered all of that prior to approving the plat for improvements at that time.
And then can you tell me, in terms of a required traffic study, I'm assuming this kind of permit doesn't require that? Is there certain parameters where we require a traffic study? Is it like a hard zoning change, or?
There certainly are certain parts of a request or a building permit that trigger traffic studies. I'm not familiar with this because I did not review it. That would be Development Services and the town engineer that reviewed that, and I do not want to provide inaccurate information. We can certainly research that and provide it if necessary.
We'll definitely research that, but I do want to make a point that this original site, as platted, the town accepted the plat with the commercial use as it is now. And at the time, we required the parking that is there, anticipating that there were going to be more intensive uses of that site. So, and one time we even had, with the Appian Way restaurant open, there were considerably more parking uses in that parking lot at this time. So I'm not advocating one way or the other, but I am telling you that what would have been required back then would have been probably, if a traffic study was required, it would have been back then, when the requirements for parking and the design of that, with the ingress, egress, and driveways, would have been all part of that original design for that whole shopping center.
And I don't know, this might be for the engineer too, but at this location, I mean, you see them in Scottsdale quite often, where they kind of have the dedicated left-hand turn lane, you know, coming out, like if you were turning northward onto Saguaro, you know, and they have the curb and you can't go directly into the lane of traffic. I'm just wondering if something like that would even work here, or?
The council member's referring to, like on Shea, where you can get into the median and you have a protected left turn, correct?
Yeah.
We can certainly review that depending on the outcome of this applicant and the site plan review, which will include the site angle and site distances for this location.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you. Do we have anybody on the phone that would like to comment or ask a question?
No, Mayor.
Did David say yes?
No.
Okay.
Yes, Mayor.
Go ahead, David.
Thank you. I will say that I don't believe it's a fair comparison to compare the monstrosity of Park Place to this particular project. The developer has the ability to develop much more land than he's currently plotted to build. I want to compliment Mr. Kaufman because I had met with him and addressed some of the emails that I got from residents, and there was also some rumors going around that because he had sold his office building that he was divesting himself from Fountain Hills and that this was just something that he was going to flip. He assured me that that wasn't going to happen and that his intentions were to live and to have an office there and to continue developing things around Fountain Hills and in Fountain Hills. So I appreciate the time that he had taken to address these issues with me. Also, I believe I think it's a great concept. I think that you can't compare it to the big boxes that are open now, that are vacant and haven't been filled, compared to this kind of boutique project that he has going. So I'm for this project, and I appreciate him taking the time to address all the concerns, and I let the citizens know his responses. So thank you.
Thank you, Councilman. Vice Mayor?
I wonder if I could ask Dan Kaufman a question. Dan? I've been annoyed a number of times when we've had protracted discussions like this about special use permits, and we approve the special use permit and nothing happens. Now, there's a time period upon which, as I understand it, some movement has to be made to follow through on the permit, or it reverts back. What is your timing on this?
If I get approval
if
tonight,
it's approved.
I'm actually sold my building, so I am renting, so the faster I get in here, the less rent I have to pay down there. So I will be moving forward right away on this. We've got all the preliminary stuff done. Upon approval, we'll start full construction documents, go through the city and whatever requirements. And I am keeping, to Looky and I will be having an office in there with the work live. And I've been here almost 30 years, raised my family. And this is, my home, so.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you. Any further comments or questions? I want to thank you, Mike, for bringing up the traffic because, as many know, this has been an issue for the town. Some of it has to do with speeding also, and so when people are speeding on Saguaro, it makes it even more, more caution needed to get out. So I think as this or any other project moves forward, this is always going to be on our mind. We have a special committee dedicated to that, and then Justin has just been right on the spot for whatever we can do for other intersections. So given that, I agree that intersection can be tricky, but don't think that this will mean that we won't be looking into that or anything that happens in the future for development-wise. If there aren't any other questions, I will close the public hearing, and then I'll ask someone to please make a motion.
Mayor,
Yes?
you want a motion?
Okay.
Before I make the motion, I would simply ask Dan Kaufman to at least take a look. You don't have to come up to the mic, that's okay. At least take a look at the setback to see if there's anything you can do.
One question that wasn't brought up. If you remember, if you look at the bottom corner, that building has been pushed clear up there and here to that corner there, that's all open space there. So the building's not pushed down to when you pull out. It's all been focused up to the top and this one over, so that's all open space for, we left it that way because of the traffic pattern in view.
Thank you. Mayor, I'm going to move to approve the special use permit to allow a maximum 12 dwelling units at 17134 East King Street Boulevard.
Second.
Thank you. All in favor, please say aye.
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 Thank you. The motion passes unanimously, I believe, and thank you very much for all your comments. Our next item is also, actually, the next two items are related, so we're going to open a public hearing to hear the first one, but we'll probably try to keep it to one staff report.
Take a break.
Yeah, I want to power through. So we'll open the public hearing.
Ready? Okay. Yes, Mayor and Council, I will be speaking to the two agenda items because they are closely related about some text amendments to a town code and zoning ordinance dealing with criminal and civil penalties. Basically, criminal penalties are important to have. They can be a little bit more challenging, however. They do result in a charge of misdemeanor. They require fairly significant documentation to go through, so they can be a challenge in some situations to use. Our other option in the code is for civil penalties, which is a little bit similar process, or a little bit simpler process. Gives us a little bit more opportunity to work with a property owner or a person in that situation to come to some kind of conclusion besides actually issuing a citation. Over the last really year and a half, town staff has been involved in a comprehensive review of the entire town code and the penalties involved, primarily with the idea of seeing where it would be appropriate and possible to move penalties from being criminal to civil to ease that enforcement process, again, making it easier for staff, improve that enforcement, better align the penalties with a type of violation, and have greater internal consistency in our code. Our work involved the town attorney's office, the courts, as well as staff and code enforcement primarily. So with the resolution and ordinances you have on the agenda, we are talking about some changes to the zoning ordinance, and that's ordinance 2115. And the reason these are separated out for you is because any change to the zoning ordinance were required to go through the P&Z Commission for their review and recommendation, and also have some slightly different notification requirements. So that's why you have the two different ordinances. The other part, the adjustments to the town code, are in ordinance 2114, and then because there's so many, it's such a long document, we're using the process with the resolution, excuse me, also resolution 2021-29, which declares those amendments a public document, and then the ordinance adopts that document. So that's why you have the different items on the agenda. So just very briefly, the one sections of the code that I'm going to go over specifically are the actual penalty provisions in sections 182 and 183 of the town code. 182 covers the criminal and civil citations. Again, these are misdemeanors, have a fine up to $2,500, can have up to 6 months of imprisonment or both. And we haven't recommended any changes to those particular provisions. There are a couple of tweaks in the language, but the actual provisions or penalties are changed in what we've recommended to you. Section 1.1-83 is a civil penalty section. This one we did rewrite fairly extensively. In the existing code, for a lot of the civil penalties, the penalties are listed with the different sections currently, and they range with a variety of different numbers. And we have decided to consolidate them all here in one location with some ranges that the judge can then use based upon the specific situation involved to determine what the appropriate penalty would be if something gets that far. So with the first issuance, it would be placed from $250 to the $750. Second, within 12 months, $500 to $1,500. Third time, within 12 months, $1,000 to $2,500. But also, by the time you get that third one, the judge could consider the situation, say this is a repeat offender, and we're going to go ahead and move them back to the criminal citation side of things. Be up to the judge. With those, there's also the court fees and charges. We can make every day a new violation if that is appropriate in a given situation. And so again, this consolidated and updated the penalties that were spread throughout the code, puts them in one spot for us. So just some of the common violations that our code staff deals with that, again, have been a challenge for them because of the criminal nature of the way they're currently designated. Such things as outdoor lighting issues. Someone's light's too bright, it's too tall, whatever. All they really need to do is change the bulb. If we ended up in some type of really having to cite somebody, today's code, that would be a misdemeanor and a bit of a challenge. Under the new code, it's civil violation. Again, if we got that far, typically we get a resolution just by talking and working with the individual. Other examples, the parking dogs, the building code violations, business license violations, the landscape maintenance. The council worked on that with us a year ago, and appreciate the council's help on that, where we updated some of those rules and requirements there. Now this makes them a civil violation if there's a problem, again, easier to enforce that way. Abandoned vehicles, issues with graffiti, parking on vacant lots, unpermitted right-of-way encroachments. Those are the types of things that have transferred from being criminal to civil citations under the various changes that we have in the code. Again, there are several other codes, types of changes in the ordinance as we cleaned up language, tried to make it more consistent throughout the code, and found some other little tweaks of things, but these are the primary issues and effect of the proposed changes. So unless you'd like me to go through each line of the new code, that's my presentation.
Thanks. So this is the first part we have to vote twice. So this one is the hearing. Do we have any comments from council on this? Yes, yes.
So basically what you're doing is you're adjusting the code to keep criminal penalty, misdemeanor, and then the planning and zoning civil citations. So, because they're not really criminal in nature, right?
Mayor, Councilmember McMahon, that's largely true. I couldn't say it's 100% that way, but certainly the zoning ones, those we did change to civil, except for 2 exceptions that we left in the code and are outlined in the staff report. And then for the most part, in the rest of the town code, most of them, I think, did stay criminal. We just cleaned up the language there. Again, there might have been a few that changed, but I don't recall any off the top of my head.
Yeah, well, many moons ago, I had a barking dog violation at my house, and had to have several background checks done for various reasons, and sure enough, misdemeanor. The only thing that came up, misdemeanor, barking dog. So I admit my guilt years ago. They're all deceased since then. I'm just wondering if my record could be expunged in terms of, just throw that out there.
Do we have any speaker cards on this item? All right. If no one on the phone has a question, I will close the hearing. And then I will ask for a motion, which is on page 48.
We have to do each one separately, right? So
Yeah, this
move
one's
to
on page 48.
I'll move to adopt ordinance 21-15.
Second.
You didn't even get to second it.
No.
All those in favor, please say aye.
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 Thank you. The motion passes. The next item then, do we have another report or do we just go to the vote? All right, I'm going to let Sharon do
Move
it.
to adopt ordinance 21-14.
I have a question about this one.
Too late.
I thought he was going to talk about this section.
We're just kidding. Go ahead.
Oh. Sorry. You want to go ahead and talk about it first?
No.
Oh, okay. All right. I have a question about section 11.14 fireworks. It looks like what are you laughing at? I know. That's a dangerous activity, and it looks like that we allow them for national holidays like Christmas and New Year's. Why are we adding Cinco de Mayo? Unless that's considered a national holiday, I don't think it is.
Mayor, Councilmember, I don't recall specifically where that came from, that change was included in here. And certainly the council could strike that out if they don't want to include that. That's
Did
been a
the
big part of policy
legislature
three.
change some of the dates for fireworks, or?
They did when they made it. I just don't recall Cinco de Mayo being added, though, because there's other possible holidays they could have also added besides Cinco de Mayo.
That would be my only question, is to make sure it wasn't something that was passed, because I know
Yeah.
the league is going to try to limit the hours of fireworks next session, but I
Right.
wasn't aware if anything changed this session that maybe we had to adopt.
Aaron, are you aware of anything that would have changed on fireworks, extending it to?
Mayor and council, the best thing I can find is that I just did a quick search for it. It looks like maybe a couple of years the legislature took up a bill a couple of years ago, trying to see if it actually passed or not. But I'm wondering, I can't say this with any certainty, but I'm wondering if it's to simply bring it up to conform with the bill that passed in the legislature a year or two ago. So I can try to confirm that and let the council know a little later on. I'll do a little bit of extra digging, but that's what my guess probably is.
Okay, thank you. Let's see. Also, on number, the one that is solid waste collection, you say that a significant, what do you mean by significant? And is this going to apply to landscapers and their trucks when they drive around and tree branches fall up and things like that? The penalty?
Yeah, could you let me know which section?
Section 10-1, 24C. It's the dumping one.
So 10-1-24C.
Yeah. Like there's solid waste collection, you know, what's significant about those in the sense, I mean, how do you measure significant, I guess?
Street, I guess I don't see that word.
Okay, it says the changes recommended for section 10-1-6 is spilling refuse during transport. 10-1-7 is dumping it and hazardous waste, et cetera. And then there's another one that says staff is also recommending a change in 10-1-24 to better clarify solid waste collection containers and stuff. And, you know, it has to be like considered like significant in order to apply. And I just wondered how you're going to measure that.
Is that in the staff report where you're reading that language on the resolution? Let's see here.
Maybe it was said in the thing.
Yeah, 'cause
Sorry.
the ordinance itself
Page
doesn't-
69 of the
ordinance doesn't use
agenda.
that language.
All right, that's fine.
So the actual language is all collection containers shall be stored close to the residence or screened from view between collection days and may not be left in the street or public rights of way. So I'm not sure where the word significant
Maybe I
is.
read it in something else, I'm sorry.
Well, I believe she's obtaining that from the staff
From the
report,
staff
it
report.
looks
Yeah.
like. In the staff summary, perhaps.
That's where I saw it. That's okay. I'll withdraw my question.
And Mayor and Council, unless that's still going on, I just wanted to jump in and let you know that there was a state statute that was passed. 36-1606 was amended, it looks like a couple years ago, to allow the sale and use of fireworks during the time period on and surrounding Cinco de Mayo. So that would probably be the answer to that question, to bring our coding to conformity and to conformance with state law.
Thanks, Aaron.
You bet.
So can we just go, is this something that we can vote on and clear up, or?
Well, from what John was reading out of the actual text that's in the ordinance, it didn't line up and square
Okay.
up with what the summary said in the executive summary of the staff report.
Okay. So we already have a motion, I believe. I don't know if we had a second, though. You going to second it? I don't know. Liz, did we already get a second or not? Sharon motioned it, made the motion.
I didn't get the motion even.
Okay, I'll re-motion
Thank
to
you.
adopt ordinance 21-14 as well as resolution 2021-29.
Second.
Thank you. All in favor, please say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you. That was good. Perfect. Can we go ahead? You guys ready to, do you just want to finish these last two items, please? That would be great. Thank you. Justin, we're going to talk about Kimley Horn.
Madam Mayor, excuse me, council members, the next agenda item has actually been in discussion for many years. This originally started when MCO Properties platted Eagle Ridge North, which is now Adero Canyon. As part of that development agreement, the town accepted funding towards a future traffic signal that would likely be warranted. As you well know, last year, the mayor and council approved an agreement with Kimley Horn to do a warrant analysis. The warrant analysis has some briefings in the staff report. Basically, in summary, it states that we have met 3 warrants, including the number of vehicles per day from not only the arterial but also the side streets, and it also discusses the level of service in regards to left turn movements from Palisades onto the side streets. It's important to note that as we've moved through this through the years, there was always a guarantee that the future growth and development in Adero Canyon, which there was an agenda item on here tonight to approve another section of that, also the expansion of the resort would likely result in a traffic signal. What we are asking for tonight is the funding to complete the final design. When we have that design in hand, it gives us an opportunity to ask for funding through grants or other opportunities to reduce the town's overall cost in the future to build a traffic signal. It's inevitable that as town grows and Adero and the resort build out, that a traffic signal is going to significantly increase the level of service for this intersection and also make it safer.
Yes, and along the lines of what the Public Works Director just stated, I just wanted to also remind the council that the development fees that the council adopted that went into effect a year ago also are collecting monies towards actually the construction of a signalized intersection at this location. So between that and some additional funding that I believe if the Adero goes forth with their expansion, there's going to be also some opportunity per the development agreement to ask for their financial contribution as well. So it won't all be on the town's nickel, so to speak, on this. If and when this goes forward and the council agrees to approve the project to build the actual intersection traffic signal.
With that, we're asking for funding for the design that will allow us those opportunities in the future. If there are any questions, I will do my best to answer them.
Yeah, Justin, will this design include any potential alterations to the physical nature of the intersection in terms of turn lanes, or is there room for that, or is that part of this study, or is it just for the lights?
Madam Mayor, council member, in fact, to meet the level of service and provide left turn pockets, there will be a substantial change, not only to the 2 medians on Palisades for north and southbound, but also the median on Eagle Ridge Drive, which is in Scottsdale's right away. there will be improvements made to each of those locations to make modifications for not only left turns, but also right turns where applicable.
So the median changes on the Scottsdale side, is Scottsdale going to pay for that then? Is that how that works, or is?
No, council member, that cost will be incurred as part of this construction project. We will certainly work with Scottsdale on an IGA and the design for anything that occurs in their right of way.
We don't want to upset the apple cart because they are maintaining Eagle Ridge all the way down to Adero. So we're very pleased with that. So we don't want to bring any undue attention to ourselves on this.
Any speaker cards? No. No? Any more comments?
Mayor?
Or yes, sir, go ahead.
Yeah, this is Jerry. You probably already know my thoughts on this because I brought it up once before. I've been through that intersection. I can't tell you how many times in the last 3 months I've never seen a backup. The accident rate is really low for that intersection, and I'm still not seeing the traffic that's going to dictate this additional study. So we're going to end up between the warrant study and the design spending $150,000 or thereabouts, when that money could be going into other roads that are really a mess in this town. I just think this is something we can put off. I don't see the need for it right now, and that's just my 2 cents.
Thank you, Jerry. I think, again, we look ahead, we're remodeling, we're doing what the county does all the time, and anticipating safety issues and needs. So I understand where you're coming from, though. This one's been kind of a toughie all the while, but looks like the numbers are kind of pointing us in that direction at this time. And also, I just might add that so many cars are just going straight through that intersection, and I think when we have a light that can stay green and not everybody has to stop, I think that it'll end up being a kind of a benefit for most of the drivers on the road. Sharon?
I am not a big fan of a traffic light there myself. I feel like turn lanes are mandatory, but I got to tell you, more people that I talk to that actually live right there and use that intersection at least twice a day have said to me that it has to have a traffic signal. So that being said, I do see the future need of a traffic signal there, and as much as I hate to spend the money, if we spend the money for the design today, then we're actually saving money on the day we decide to put it in, because the design isn't going to change, but the cost of the design will change.
Yeah, and to piggyback on that, I mean, I think if the experts who did this warrant study found that there's 3 warrants already met, including traffic volume, I don't think there's much debate there. I just don't see how we can just ignore this based on what the experts are recommending.
Any other comments, questions? Motion, please?
Mayor, it's Dave.
Oh, go ahead.
Can you tell me how much, does anybody know how much the developers have kicked in for this project?
Excuse me, Councilmember Spellish, this is Grady. You're talking about the development fees themselves and what the balance is, or are you talking about what maybe Toll Brothers or what hotel might have chipped in, or is that what you're talking about, or are you talking about what we've collected so far in development fees?
No, what the developers have given us towards this.
Okay, so you're talking about back when it was MCO was developing the town. I understand from the previous town engineer that it was a small amount. It was probably around 30,000, I think is what I've heard going back. And again, we're talking probably about 25 years ago.
I think it was like 50.
50,000,
I think.
the mayor seems to remember.
Madam Mayor, if I may, indeed, MCO's contribution when it was Eagle Ridge North was $50,000, which was in excess of 20 years ago. And at that time, a traffic signal was approximately $100,000 to construct.
So there you go, yeah.
And now that signal would be how much?
900?
A rough estimate, Madam Mayor, Councilmember Spellage, is above $800,000, but we will not know the true cost until the design is completed and an agreement to move forward with construction, and then we open the sealed bids.
And moving forward, we've got to be better with negotiating how much these developers kick in for these things. I know it was 20 years ago, but $50,000, I mean, I just think it's a ludicrous amount of money.
So to my point, what I was trying to explain is when we did our updated development fee study, council approved, for the first time, we never had a development fee for streets. So part of the development fees that's covering this, we also have improvements that will also pay for some of the widening on Shea. So this is a first time ever thing that this council did, and I think is going to help offset a big chunk of that. We also, to your point about developers paying, if and when the Adaro Resort develops, they are supposed to, and I don't have the number in front of me, but I think it was a percentage that was identified that they would have to also kick in if they develop their final phase. Because by that time, they will be generating enough that was going to be kicking in the warrants, which now the warrant study is showing that we have the traffic volume.
Thank you. The motion's on page 79, if someone would like to do that, please.
Move to approve amendment number 1 to Professional Services Agreement C 2021-031 with Kimley Horn and Associates, Inc. for traffic signal design in the amount of $105,570.
Second.
Thank you. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed?
Nay. Nay. Nay.
Thank you.
Nay.
Five to 2. I think we heard you. We got you.
Motion passes 5-2.
Thank you, guys. Our last action item is to talk about the washes, town-owned washes. Is that Justin?
Yes, it is.
Madam Mayor,
Justin,
thank you.
Continue.
Admittedly, this next one, the town manager and staff has discussed for over 2 years on how best to proceed to protect the open space, yet minimize or limit or completely eliminate the activities in there that are unfavorable to this community, including but not limited to illegal dumping, the use of motorized vehicles, and the potential for the unsheltered using this for housing. Again, we did a lot of work on this, the town manager and staff. We met with the town attorney and discussed it several times, how to best approach this and what is the best solution. What we have before you tonight for consideration is to simply eliminate the public access to our washes. And that will provide a more controllable environment, not only for the town staff, but the sheriff's office to preserve this open space and also allow for the tools necessary to deal with any offenses that may or may not occur as a result of encroachment into these open space areas. Again, we recognize that this is challenging, and we've spent a considerable amount of time attempting to address this to the best of the ability to meet the needs and the future uses for this community. With that, I will do my best to answer any questions you may have related to this proposal.
Thank you. Councilman?
Justin, I appreciate all the effort. Sorry. I appreciate all the effort that's gone into this, and I certainly understand the problem. I'm trying to understand how we're going to enforce it. When you say access to, how are we going to deal with that?
Madam Mayor, Vice Mayor, what we will do in the event that this is passed after the posting and during that process, we will begin to erect signs that indicate that the area is no trespassing, and we will reference the town code and/or Arizona revised statute related to that at each of the locations that we deem necessary immediately up front, and continue to expand that moving forward for areas where encroachment may happen.
Vice Mayor, too, we'll also be working and trying to get the word out to the community. I know that there's people that, this is not geared towards trying to prevent people from, that might walk or hike through this, but this will give basically the sheriff's office probable cause. If they see suspicious activity, you just right now, if they just see someone walking out of wash and they didn't see that they dumped, debris, or maybe they have dropped their landscaping materials or things like that, this will basically give them the ability to really stop people and possibly question them and cite them if it appears that they may have violated our dumping ordinance, or if they have done some other activities. The other thing is our peers throughout the valley are starting to see a lot of encampments that are going on. You see this with both the canals, the SRP canals running through the valley, as well as some of the CIP water areas, also the dry riverbeds that you see throughout the valley, and some of the creeks. So this is really to help prevent that as well, because we're very concerned with the washes and the potential for fire, particularly with the wildfires we've had near surrounding our community. So this will help us. If the sheriff's office sees people that look suspicious, they can basically enforce the no trespassing and get them off the property.
And far be it, Madam Mayor and Council, for me to speak on behalf of the District 7 Captain, Larry Kratzer. If he could be here tonight, he would share with you that the deputies that encounter any individuals in these areas still have the discretion based on what we're asking you to adopt tonight, so they can garner some information and make decisions based on that. Again, not putting words in his mouth, but he and I have discussed this numerous times.
If I may, I'm just curious. Let's assume an officer sees somebody dumping. What's the penalty? Do we know?
Vice Mayor, I currently do not have the penalty fees in front of me.
Okay.
Just to make clear, we're still allowing people to walk through the washes, or completely no trespassing?
They will be posted as completely no trespassing, but again, it's going to be the level of enforcement will be such that if something appears to be suspicious activity, that's when they'll act on it. If people are just walking and coming out of a wash, and it's obvious that they're hiking or walking, they're not going to get stopped. That's not, the sheriff's office doesn't have the time to do that. But if they're walking and they've got some tools, or they've got something, or they're walking in with plastic bags, that's going to give them an opportunity to stop them in their tracks. Again, this is a very challenging situation because, as you know, we've had this discussion, I believe, at the council retreat about whether the washes can be turned into some recreational open space. And, we've had some good discussion on that. But right now, because of some of the issues that we see our peers throughout the valley are dealing with some of these encampments and other issues, we've been kind of advised that this is a really kind of a best practice to kind of deal with this now before we start getting into a situation that's going to be very challenging to deal with later. But we've also had a major issue with dumping. We have sofas and refrigerators and appliances, particularly in Ashbrook Wash, where they just get people drive in and drop them off and leave. So it's a real problem. And we're not really trying to get at the people, the legitimate residents that are trying to just walk and then utilize these spaces. We're just trying to address some of the bigger problems and give our law enforcement tools that they currently don't have right now.
The reason why I ask is because I've been a part of a couple of different meetings, and my husband is on the MMP, the McDowell Mountain Preserve Commission, and walking through the washes is a conversation that comes up all the time, that we don't really have a great walkable town where you can walk from one end to the other, that the washes are an opportunity for some people to do that. And that's why I brought that up. So that's kind of important to me, that we still maintain that We know people are doing it, and they're not going to stop doing it. It's important to them.
Yeah, I fully concur with that, and so I can appreciate the big picture, what we're trying to do on a larger scale, and I know, Justin, you said the deputies will still have some discretion, and because, again, whether someone's hiking or if there's 3 kids on bikes building little dirt ramps, just having fun down the wash, I don't want neighbors to use this as a weapon or something against, oh, there's a little bit of noise or what have you, when it's just a recreational type, play activity. So that's important.
It's a good point, and also I want to point out that this only applies to town-owned washes. So there's a number of privately owned washes that HOAs are actually involved in maintaining their own washes. So this only applies to those that are town washes. Also, what I'd like to do is, if this is considered adopted tonight, then we will actually monitor this and we'll report back maybe 12 months, come back to you and tell you how it's going. And if you want to either at that time make adjustments to this, then we can consider doing that at that time. But this is such a critical issue right now that I'd like to try to get ahead of it before we start seeing some other problems that we could have possibly prevented.
And Madam Mayor, if I may, in regards to the excellent point that Councilmember Grozbowski brought up, in the future, if it is decided that a trail or a designated trail is proposed to be constructed in one of these open spaces, a simple amendment and or additional signage noting that you must remain on the existing path or the designated path is a pretty simple way to accomplish utilizing that open space for that need should it arise.
And I know that this is an entirely different issue, but I know that the washes are voter approved to not have any kind of development or paths or anything on them, so that's another whole issue. I think this is kind of like some of our other ordinances where the goal is compliance, not penalties, so I think that I'm comfortable passing this right now, but being sensitive to some of those things that you guys are talking about. So, were there any speaker cards on this? No. Any other comments or questions? Can I get a motion, please?
Move approval.
I'll second.
Thank you. All in favor of adopting ordinance 21-16, please say aye.
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 Aye. Aye.
Thank you. That motion passes. Our last item, as always, is just any requests of the town manager or motion to adjourn.
Move to adjourn.
Second.
Thank you. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Good night.
Aye.